Good afternoon and welcome to the next edition of Topic North Texas. I'm Andrea Coker with the North Texas Commission.
And I'm TJ Gilmore, also with the North Texas Commission. We have an amazing guest today, and he's graciously taken some time out of his incredibly busy schedule. If you don't know this man, he is all over North Texas right now. He is Chairman Randall Bryant with DART, and today we're going to have him share with us a little bit about the process, what's been going on. DART is obviously in the news.
I was going to say, has something happened?
Yeah, a little bit,
That's
right?
crazy. Nobody's heard of anything.
It's starting to settle down, though, right?
A little bit.
A little bit. So, Chairman, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you ended up where you are right now?
Yeah, well, first, thank you all for both having me to share a few opportunities or some time together. So in 2024, I became the newest member, the youngest member of the board at the time. There was a little bit of a vacancy in our vice chair's position in 2025. The board elected me to serve as the vice chair. Our state rules then require the chairmanship to go back and forth between a suburb member and a member from the city of Dallas. And so in October 28th of last year, we had a vote for the next chair's role, and the board elected me to serve as the next chair for the 2 years.
From the city of Dallas.
From the city of Dallas. Okay. So that's October. What's going on in the couple of 3 months up to that vote?
It didn't take that long. It took about 12 hours. About 12 hours later, I was walking into an event the next morning and received a call from one of the mayors from one of our 13-member cities. And it went almost exactly like this. He said, "Hey, heard you were elected as chair last night. Congratulations. This is the first time me and I ever spoke. I didn't even have his number programmed in my phone." And he says, "Congratulations. Just want you to know next week we're taking a vote to withdraw from DART."
Sure.
And
It's a rough first day.
it wasn't the one that we expected for sure. And it kind of cascaded from there. It ended up being 6 cities in total. That took a series of votes over about a month and a half of time to call for an election in May. And we worked around the clock to address the various concerns and needs from the cities that we been hearing for some time. And even more so that the night before, I had pledged to work towards finding those solutions. But the cities thought that I needed a little bit of some encouragement to get it done in a short amount of time.
Sure.
And so we worked day and night to try to kind of break down. We have 13 cities that have a population base from 3,000 to 1.3 million people. And the transit needs are different in each city. And the services we deliver are different in each city. And so to try to kind of cobble all of those concerns and the service deliverables to each city into a package that works for all 13, we came pretty close to doing so. Obviously, there are 3 cities that remain. There's a couple of days left. We're holding out hope that, this week may change. But if not, they will take it to their voters in May, and we'll see the outcome of it.
Gotcha. And those 3 cities are Addison, Highland Park, and University Park, correct?
That's correct.
3 of the smallest cities, I think, represented by DART, are covered by the DART system, correct?
There are a couple that are smaller than them, Glen Heights and Cocker Hill, but they are 3 of the smallest 5 cities. Yes.
Yeah. So I know the commission, we kind of started having conversations about this and kind of getting everybody in a room back in early September. So this transitioned a little bit between the previous chair, Gary Schlegel, and yourself. And so what do you think was the thing that really made it where you heard these are the things that are really clear for me to be able to make change? And when did you think you felt like you could maybe get this over the line?
I definitely know what the defining point was, or when the defining point was. I think before that, being a young and tenure on the board was kind of a blessing and a curse. The blessing was I didn't have a lot of the preconceived notions, didn't carry some of the baggage, any previous bad blood between myself or the agency and the cities to be able to seek compromise. The curse was had to kind of learn people on the fly, had to understand, get better educated on the issues themselves beyond the surface level that I had been kind of understanding for about a year and a half prior to. So that was kind of really key. It was being young to the situation, to be able to say, okay, hey, look, I'm the new guy. Don't take it out on me, but also I'm the new guy. I gotta get caught up to speed really quick
Yeah, yeah.
to figure this thing out. So that was one. The defining moment, though, was definitely when Plano voted to delay their microtransit contract, because that was like really in the heat of the moment where it could go either way.
Sure.
We had already had an initial meeting with the city officials on what our proposed plan was going to be. DART had not voted on it yet. The RTC had not voted on their portion of it yet. So it's kind of like in the balance. And it was the first time that it's not that they didn't have clear direction, but they saw something in what we were presenting. And they said, okay, let's slow down on what we're trying to move forward with this microtransit contract, which they end up approving anyways.
Right.
But it's in a different tone now. It's to try to be in coordination and conjunction with DART versus being the only substitute for DART.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. When you're going through this process, we kind of identified, and I'm wondering if you thought these were the three pillars as well. The city's really spent a lot of time around governance. They spent a lot of time around service, and of course, tied directly to services funding.
Right.
So as those being the three pillars, kind of take us through the decisions that have been made up to this point, and where we are in that process, because I think the process is still ongoing, right? It's not done.
Oh no, we're I think I've said it at DART and I've said it at a few council meetings. The hard work is done and the real work now begins. And I want to also just thank and applaud the North Texas Commission and you, Mayor Gilmore, for all the work that you all did and on behalf and with DART and our cities, to get us to some level of compromises on at least two of the three pillars. The governance in particular, I know that was something that you all took by the baton and really ensured every 2 weeks on a Wednesday morning at 7:30
Whether
in the
you
morning.
like it or not.
Right. You're gonna be in Urban, Texas.
Yeah.
That working group
Yes, you are.
worked. That working group worked.
Yeah. And so, the governance, the kind of founding elements of it are, well, let's back up. So the current governance structure of DART, because we've had two now. The first one was 25 board members. 15 of them came from the city of Dallas. The other 10 came from the 12 suburb cities. In 1995, there was a complete overhaul, not just in the governance, but a lot of other places in our enabling statute, that reduced the representation down to 15 board members based upon population. At that time, actually, the city of Dallas, appointed 9 members. Over 20 years since then, every 5 years we go through a census count, and the representation of the city of Dallas on the DART board has dwindled now to
Yeah, reapportions.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's dwindled out to about 7.8. And so because we have a little bit over the half, we appoint 8. Dallas appoints 8. But Dallas has not grown. The suburbs have grown exceedingly beyond the city of Dallas. And so that was a trend that clearly was going to carry over probably the next 5 to 10 years, that Dallas's ability to appoint the majority of the board, that's been on track to not take place beyond the next 5 or 10 years. So for us, it's kind of like, hey, look, we can either accept that inevitable moment in time 5 to 10 years from now, or we can work with the cities to try to hear their call. And one of the things in particular was that no one city should be able to appoint the majority of the board.
Right.
Because we were on track for that anyways, that seemed pretty obvious. The second one was that every city should be able to appoint at least one member to the board. Once you kind of set those two parameters, it's kind of like, okay, and who has less?
Forward if you do that.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah. So
Yes.
the board is going back up in size. Actually, the configuration of our board room and the horseshoe, it was the same horseshoe from 25. So we can
You're already set up.
yeah, well, yeah, it's
You'll be all
a
right.
little less elbow room. It's
You'll
kind of
be
like
friendly.
yes, right. So that was that, and so pretty much all cities, regardless if they are withdrawing or not, have pretty much signed off on those principles for the governance, which we say was easy, but it took
Oh,
Right.
it
We
took
watched some city council meetings with,
Yeah.
bated breath to make
Yeah.
sure that was what was going to happen. So.
Yeah.
No, and a big thank you needs to go out to the city of Dallas,
Absolutely.
because that whole conversation really centered around cities not feeling like they had an equitable voice in the room.
Right.
And Dallas came. There was one proposal that came through, and Dallas looked at it, and they flipped the math a little bit, but I think it actually made the entire situation stronger.
Yeah.
And the key there being that if you were in the room or you were a DART member, you didn't have somebody that was representing, and I'm just picking names, but wasn't representing like a Richardson and a Farmers Branch who have maybe different transportation needs.
Absolutely.
But that one person, if they were passionate and could put together a really good argument, being in the room, they could sway things.
Absolutely.
Whereas that split maybe didn't give them that opportunity.
Yeah. And so we were able to, the governance was it was hard, but it was the easiest one to solve. And so then, of course, the funding was the next big bite at the apple.
Right.
And
You mean money complicates things?
every time. And so, again, coming in as a new chair, coming in with some limited transportation experience, hearing a lot of different concepts that were just floated around. I just kind of had like this weird dream and an idea that, hey, okay, if we kind of took some best concepts and best principles from this and cobbled something from this, and it just kind of came together.
So what does that decision look like for cities that made it so that the 3 of the 6 cities said, hey, yeah, this is a good deal for us. This is a place that meets us where we need to be. So what are the kind of the nuts and bolts of that decision?
Yeah. So we had heard very consistently from our member cities, whether that's through the bill that was filed last session, House Bill 3187, or even in there, in some of the cities that did call for withdrawal election, that submitted various proposals for us to consider that if we adhere to them, that they would rescind their elections, that 25% of the sales taxes collected to be returned to the cities was a very consistent number. Some cities asked for more, some cities asked for scale. The bill had different components to it, but that was the most consistent number that for a year and a half now we've heard as the cities who, over a period of time, the legislature has decreased their ability to grow their budgets year over year. I'm sure you're fully aware of that as the mayor
Still
of the
getting
city.
started.
No.
We're not gonna start.
That's a whole nother hour.
4A, 4B, all these different constraints that came into place after DART was created in 1983, which has put up certain barriers for us to grow our system. It's put up inabilities for the cities who are our member cities and are our partners. So I've always been consistent. DART cannot afford 25%. DART cannot afford it in one slash compounding. No matter how you get there, that would effectively remove our ability to operate our system at current levels or any reduced levels that are meaningful. But it was, how can we come up with something? Because saying no over and over and over and over and over and that strategy was not a sustainable strategy for DART, in my opinion.
Right.
So it was a matter of, okay, what can we afford? But beyond what can we afford, what pathways can we create to get to this 25%? And I think most cities that were calling for withdrawal elections, that rescinded their elections, really find the most value in the optimistic view of the other components that we cobbled together to actually get to the 25%. So essentially, there are three components. One is a guaranteed minimum amount of money that each city will receive over the next 6 years. It starts at 5%, it escalates up to 10%. The RTC voted to expend about $75 million, which equates to about 2.5% of the money's total. So DART would be out 7.5%. The RTC would be supporting us with 2.5%. That's how we get to the 10%. Then from there, and again, these are just concepts. These some of them, both of them were already in the works. I did not create it.
Right.
I just had the crazy idea to bring it together.
Right.
One is regional rail. So that's in North Texas, we have essentially 3 lines that are regional rail. Two of them are owned by DART, which is the TRE and the new Silver Line, and then the other one is TexRail. Now, someone may feel like the A train is a regional rail. I'm not getting in nobody else's business.
Listen, I understand. We lease that. We lease that from DART.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that is
I'm not
absolutely
getting
DART's
into
control.
anyone else's
No,
business
no.
but mine.
And as the vice chair of VCTA, I want to say thank you to DART because we really appreciate the partnership.
Right. But there's been concepts or discussions out, whether that's the Transit 2.0 subcommittee that's at the RTC that's been working for months, maybe even years on how do we create better sustainability with our regional transportation and regional transit partners. How exactly, and what exactly it looks like, that's still for us to decide. But that was one of the concepts. If a regional rail system could be created by transferring at least DART's assets or the management of those assets to some entity that was funded outside of the current sales tax structure. We know at DART, especially once we get past our final capital projects with the Silver Line, that it's about 15 roughly % of our annual budget on the capital and operating side. And so if we transition that to some agency, a regional mobility authority is kind of the term that we keep throwing out in RMA, it would save DARTs, and therefore DART could pass on those savings to our member cities. We just wouldn't reappropriate for new expenditures.
So that entity would effectively buy down that 15%.
Correct. So that's one. And so you have something that's at least over, and again, that's for longevity and sustainability.
Right.
That's in perpetuity, right? This first component is only for a 6-year period. And then the third part was, everyone says we need new revenues. And so this one is not necessarily ingrained yet, but it's the best one that I know. There are over 7 million vehicles registered in the 169 cities that make up the COG region. The COG region gets funded hundreds of millions of dollars annually, really based upon the work that the transit authorities do, but that everyone benefits from. Because every car that a transit authority takes off of the freeways is a ride easier for a car that's still on it. The air quality is better because of the work that transit authorities do. Absolutely.
Wear and tear.
All of those things, right? And so regardless if you are if you live in a city that pays into a transit authority or not, everyone in this region benefits from it. Everyone that goes through this region benefits from it. The commerce that Amazon trucks that go through this region benefit from the work that the transit authorities do.
I'm personally supporting one myself. Yes.
So, and we all do, right? Because that's the beauty of a sales tax model is that, regardless if I live in a city or not,
it's a user fee.
Exactly. I'm committing my dollars to the benefit of, where the sales taxes go.
Right.
And so, there are 7 million vehicles that are within the COG region. 3 million of them are registered within a city that is a part of a transit authority. So the other 4 million are not, right? And so it's how do we create a system that obviously we can't force a member city into a transit authority. And even if you could do that, where are the sales taxes available for it?
Right.
Okay. So how can we create something that is at least equitable, that everyone is paying their fair share into it because everyone is benefiting to some degree from it.
Yeah.
And so, you can slice it a lot of different ways, but essentially if $100 million or so was able to be raised from that, call it a $20 fee, a $25 fee. Of course, that's distributed across all transit authorities, not just DART at this point, because DCTA and Trinity Metro are doing the same work to whatever degree that DART is doing as well. Then that money could come and be through the RMA also sent back to the cities that obviously generate the original sales tax dollars. And so that's about 15% for component 2, about 10% for component 3, and that is the 25%. And once you have those established, and it's going to take a couple of sessions for us to go through it. This is why it's a 6-year, proposal, that it will take 1 or 2 or 3 to get the governance and get an RMA set up and get it funded and get a governance structure that we've talked about set up for it. And so the cities understand, hey, look, commit to DART. We have as much as we can to return back to you for right now. we all should be focusing on these other two components. And when we do that, DART is then made back whole. You have all your 25% back at no expense to DART, and everyone will be saying kumbaya.
Yeah, trying to figure out how to expand the pie.
Right.
And so
Basically, that sounds easy. That's
Right.
months.
Get it.
yeah, and
I did it in 18 days.
And Austin is really good about listening to the locals and helping us
and they
get our
listen.
goals done.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah. So nothing here to see. So that's, and you kind of answered my next question is what's next. It's we've got to get down to Austin, number one, to rework the legislation, the founding legislation for DART.
Correct.
And then legislation number two is whatever this new regional authority looks like, what it's composed of, how it's funded.
Yeah.
So and hopefully we don't get those two conflated, right? Because they're very different types of solutions for two very different problems.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that well, we also have to deal with the service.
Yes.
So that's the third pillar that we have to ensure we're addressing. And I'm a very kind of like lay out the plan, lay out the problem, right? Not in the sound bites and the talking points and beefing it up to just sell a story. Like, what is actually the problem, right? And that's kind of the pattern of the negotiations that we went through. It's like, okay, look, we understand what's happening in front of the cameras. We understand what's happening at these horseshoes for the council meetings, but like, really tell me what it is that you
Don't just tell me empty buses. Tell me what that means. So
Exactly.
what is a more impactful transit option for you?
Correct.
What kind of flexibility you need from us that we don't give you today?
Right. And again, because every city is different, the geography is different, the transit needs are different, the business climate is different. So it's all going to be different in every city. There are going to be some basic element principles that every city requires. And we've tried to build a robust system, especially on the rail side, the second largest light rail system in the country. I think a lot of people kind of look at DART, and those that don't experience transit anywhere else look at DART and don't really objectively like enjoy or view the system that we've built in a very short period of time.
Right.
There are transit systems over 100 years old in this country. DFW is the only airport in this country that has 2 commuter rails and a light rail entry point in the entire country. DART has built and that's not just DART, that's obviously in partnership with Trinity Metro. But DART has built the second largest light rail system in the country. It was the largest until LA extended theirs to their airport, right? In a very short period of time of 4 decades, right? People around that either live here or don't see other transit authorities don't really understand that impact, of what we've built in a very short period of time. And it's really because of two things. One, we use a lot of existing right-of-ways and old rail infrastructure, which was good and bad. It was easy. We didn't have to do a lot of eminent domain, but it was going to places where it was proper to go in 1932. Right. Might not be best to go to today. It goes a lot of good places, but not all of the best places. Right. And the other thing was the penny, because we were able to back our debt by guaranteed funds of continuously increasing sales taxes year over year. Those were the two things that built the system, like with total unencumbered progress.
Well, and that's the power of North Texas, right? We have an amazing engine that allows us to get big things done. In parts of the world that you can't. You just couldn't do it.
No, absolutely. So. And so now it's like, what is sustainability of our or how do we sustain? Because we've made good on all of the promises in 1983. We've finally delivered rail to Addison. That's even very eerie, right? Because Addison is voting to withdraw. The year the civil, 6 months or 8 months after the civil line opens. But this is not the first election cycle that DART has been in. This is actually now our fourth. We've had withdrawal elections in 1985, 1989, 1996, and now 2026. In 1996, 6 cities tried to withdraw from DART. All were unsuccessful, but that was the year that the light rail system opened.
Right.
A month later, So this is like very reminiscent of of a situation we've seen before.
Yeah, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
It's
Yeah.
very close. It's very close. But so we've built all the things that we intended to build back in 1983 when the great Walt Heumann kind of cobbled this idea together, and thank God we still have him around to at least call up. And I talked to him earlier today. It's great to at least have someone that can remind you of why you started on the thing that you did so long ago. But again, the sustainability of where we are now, it's like, how do we move to the next version of DART?
Yeah. Now, we'll all need to be pulling together, working with our legislators. Of course, you have the support of the North Texas Commission with anything that we need to do down in Austin. We're going to continue to work in lockstep to be able to make things better for the region. So, Chairman Bryant, I really appreciate your time and your insight. It's been great. It's been great. Thank you. Good luck out there.
Well, you're a part of the show. We can do it.
We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen.
The night we have been waiting for has come and gone. The election of consequence in Texas last Tuesday was the best night in politics. It was the Texas primary election. TJ, how did you spend the evening?
I didn't watch a darn thing.
I spent it with a martini in one hand and my phone on Twitter in the other, and it was glorious. I also had coffee and an energy drink today, so we're going to blitz through these primary results because we had a lot to talk about with DART today.
Let's go.
The main news for our Texas Democrats in their very first contentious, expensive statewide primary election was that State Representative James Tallarico is heading to the ballot in November to be Texas Senate representative.
That's right.
So that was an exciting result. Polls kept going either way. He had a late momentum push, wondered if that was enough to take him across the finish line. And I think, honestly, he ran a technically great campaign.
He did.
His events were well staffed. Everything was done well by paid members, and he had an extensive staff and team, and it was really a well-executed campaign, and I think he saw the results on Tuesday.
Yeah, strong ground game, earned media that
Yes.
you literally couldn't pay for. It was pretty impressive.
As he outspent Representative Crockett, to be fair, and groups on his behalf outspent Representative Crockett, but he still had the machine, and it's a machine he will continue to refine and grow into November. I think we know why the Republicans were hoping maybe Jasmine Crockett would be the winner. But alas, we are facing James Tallarico and a Republican in the November election, which means we don't know who the Republican nominee is yet because they are headed to a runoff. In what was actually kind of a shocking result for Texas politics, Senator John Cornyn, despite trailing in most polls, came out on top on Tuesday night. He is the lead vote getter in Texas. I think being voted on statewide for as long as he has been an elected statewide official for years now. People are used to voting for him. And maybe some of the more quiet members of the Republican Party still support him. They're just not quite as loud about that support as some of maybe Attorney General Paxton's supporters. Attorney General Paxton did come in to be fair, a very close second. They are headed to a runoff, and Wesley Hunt is nowhere to be found.
That's right. That's right. Well, maybe he's back in the halls of Congress.
I would hope he is.
Yeah.
That is his job.
That is his job.
And we keep hearing that President Trump has said he will be weighing in on the Texas Senate election. He said he would do it the day after the election. Both Attorney General Paxton and Senator Cornyn have come out with their kind of posturing. We know President Trump cares about the discourse on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days. He cares and he watches it, and both senators are positioning as the right choice, both to win in November and to advance the president's primary goal right now, which is to get the SAVE Act passed. I think the president sees the SAVE Act as his only way to possibly keep the House in November. He has said he will not sign any bills, including DHS funding, until that is passed. So it's getting really tricky. I would love to be able to pair it in. By the time this actually comes out, we may know who the president has decided to endorse.
Right.
And I think that still matters because in the other runoff of note, we have MAGA Mays Middleton and Chip Roy in the Attorney General runoff, trying to replace Ken Paxton. Mays Middleton's $10 million of family money did, in fact, not only buy him a seat to the runoff, it bought him first place.
It did buy him first place, but not first place enough.
Not first place enough. Not quite at that 51%. So what you're going to see is Chip Roy and Mays Middleton fight it out in May to see who will be on the ballot for Attorney General. The Democrats actually went to a runoff in the Attorney General race, so they will be having statewide runoff as well. Probably not nearly as well attended.
Yeah, not nearly as fiery, I don't think.
No. But the two other runoffs of note in North Texas are Texas 32. We talked about that newly redrawn district that will likely be Republican, is down to Jace Yarborough and Ryan Binkley. And then I think somewhat surprising because people didn't even realize there was really a third candidate in play. In Texas 33, the Colin Allred, Julie Johnson, both current and former representative for Texas 32, are head-to-head in May because that has turned into a runoff.
right.
There was a pretty viable third candidate that pushed them into a runoff. I think the two biggest surprises maybe of election night statewide were that former Senator Don Huffines is now going to be on the ballot to be comptroller. He won what was a fairly contentious and expensive three-way race without a runoff. And so he's heading to the ballot in November. And then what we don't usually get was an incumbent defeated in a statewide election. The governor-backed Nate Sheets defeated Sid Miller to be our likely next agriculture commissioner.
Right. Now, and Sid's kind of been in the news for the wrong reasons for the last couple of years.
He has. He got crossways with Governor Abbott on some things. And I think if the election had been maybe a week or two more, the Sheets campaign was wobbling a little bit, but it was enough to push him across the finish line. So we will see Nate Sheets of Nate's Honey
Yes.
on our ballot in November. Did anything surprise you in this election? I went rapid fire
as
through
fast
all
as
of
you
these.
could. I think two things are interesting. The number one is the Paxton's comment that he would drop out of the race if the U.S. Senate got rid of the filibuster. I mean, that's some pretty impressive hubris.
That is to change an institution
Yes.
just so that you would drop out is something.
Yeah, and then of course you've got a lot of the pontification out there is that he will be offered Pam Bondi's job.
Yes,
which
if
would
she
be
gets,
interesting.
can we call it Christine owned?
Christine Ohm, can we call it that now?
I think that's a verb now.
It's now a verb. I see.
Which is if you make President Trump unhappy, you're out, and a senator from Oklahoma takes your place.
That's how that'll work. So that was, I think that one was an interesting bit of fallout from this. As far as the elections go, I think it'll be interesting. Again, half of my dream ticket has made it. Tallarico's there, so that as interesting as that race will be, I think the Tallarico Paxton would be even more entertaining. But it would be a lot for people to take in.
If you're still watching, you should put in the comments on YouTube what your ideal race or matchup would be in November, because I think that would be interesting and slightly divisive, which I'm here for in the comments.
Slightly. So no, those are all good stuff. And then I think the other piece that I thought was really interesting was to see Tallarico's performance in the Valley. The Valley has shifted back, it swung back, completely overperformed. And I think that's if that holds in November, that's going to be a really big deal.
I am interested to see the numbers of who voted in the Democrat versus Republican primary laid up against the newly redrawn seats that they are sure will be Republican. I don't think they all will be.
Yeah, I think
likely the ones down in South Texas.
That's going to be a shift. I will say that the other part of the data that I found really fascinating is Tarrant County. Tarrant County overperformed roughly 1.3 Democratic votes to every one Republican vote, which is huge. They didn't even come close to that in 18, which was a presidential year, right? Or no?
No, that was better. But that was a high watermark because it was a midterm election against a Republican president, and so that was the high watermark for Tarrant County Republicans.
And you even have even redder counties, Denton County and Collin County, seeing significant increases. Collin County was almost 1-to-1. I think maybe 8 to 10, 8 Democratic votes to every 10 Republican votes. So I think was the ratio there, and Denton County was a little bit redder than that.
I wonder if Mark Veazey is wishing he'd stayed on the ballot for Tarrant County.
Tarrant County, it might have made a difference, but Tarrant has decidedly not gone purple in the primary here. They went blue.
Yep.
So that one will be fascinating to see what happens, because that everybody keeps talking as Tarrant goes, so does Texas, so does the nation.
Tarrant, I believe, was the largest county that was still voting red. So we'll see what happens in November. It's obviously there's a lot to happen before November. There's a lot to happen before May. Personally, I have some money on the Senate election, so I'll stay tuned, and we will keep you up to date on what's going on there. we could likely see either someone dropping out of that Senate race. I believe the deadline is March 19th,
Somewhere
18th or
in there.
19th, that they could just either Senator Cornyn or Attorney General Paxton could withdraw and they would not be on the ballot. That race would be done. Or we could see another $100 million spent in trying to secure one of those men the final ticket to know. And that's just to get to fight
That's just to get-
Tellerico
yeah.
in November.
Exactly. And that's I think that's going to be a real difficult thing for the Republicans to 3 months of them beating on each other in the media. That does degrade a
It
campaign.
does. It does. And you'll start to see a little bit of the national media shift as Texas is the first big primary in the country. A couple other states went the day we did, but others will start having their primary. You'll start to see more of this circulating in the news, but still here in Texas, if they keep duking it out through May, it's hard to come out of that bloodied and bruised in June and start fighting with a united party behind you.
Right. Now, of course, with all of this noise going on, we have local elections coming.
That's next month.
So yeah,
That's
we'll
next
deal with
month.
that next month. But please don't forget, you need to pay attention to your locals, even while this kind of chaos is still going on at the
Yes.
state level for their runoffs.
And don't forget, it's primary and then municipal elections and then runoff.
That's
So it's a nonstop votapalooza here.
And then runoffs from
for the
municipals.
municipal elections, yes. And then all of a sudden it's November and we're all a year older.
Yes,
So
indeed. So lots of news, and we'll keep you posted as we go with scintillating opinion.
scintillating opinion.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's all we have for today's episode. We appreciate you guys for hanging out. Put some comments, your input on down below who you'd like to see. We, of course, would love to have some sponsors to help us with this, but we're getting the name out and we're seeing our numbers go up. So we appreciate all of you who are paying attention to us, and we hope we're getting you some great value. With that, thanks for attending Topic North Texas, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.